Greetings, fellow citizens of Disneyland. Brickey here with my 5th deep dive on the Haunted Mansion. Today, I can't wait to talk to you about 3 things. The Haunted Mansion's relationship to Main Street, USA, why the Haunted Mansion exists right here, and third and most importantly, why you should stop complaining. And I'm going to put me in that same category as complaining. We're an entitled generation. Let's stop our complaining about the Haunted Mansion. And oh, I didn't mean to irritate you prematurely. It's my 5th deep dive on the Haunted Mansion. 3 things I wanted to talk about while we're waiting for it to come back online. One of the great things about the Haunted Mansion is that it's built in the exact same time period as Main Street, USA. It's built in a very similar architecture style. It is an extension of Main Street, USA. It is a continuation of that story. It is the weird house out on the edge of town that you've heard 1,000 different rumors about. And you hold on to one of those rumors, you make that one the one that feels real to you, and that's the one that you spread to your friends and to your loved ones. For Main Street, USA to work, for it to be so perfect and flawless, it has to feel like it's inside of a real little city. And every city has multiple neighborhoods. So we'll kind of for a second just ignore Fantasyland, Frontierland, and Adventureland. Those are fun lands, no doubt about it. But the drama's turned up a little bit too far to make it feel totally real to us. But let's think about New Orleans Square. New Orleans Square has so much flavor and personality. If Main Street, USA is where the townspeople live, where the city's at, where sort of, the uptight, prim and proper people are, then the square is where the artists live. It's where the weirdos are at. It's where the culture resides. And then going beyond New Orleans Square on the outer edge of Disneyland, that's where we put that weird house that everybody has a rumor, a friend of a friend went in and they never came back out. That's why the Haunted Mansion is here. That's why it's on the old edge of the park. This was the furthest point you could go. It was the creepy, scary corner in the back part of the park that you wondered, why is it here? What's its story, and when am I finally gonna get to go in it? One of the things that made Walt Disney such a great storyteller is that he perfectly understood you have to have a little bit of evil to offset your hero or your heroine. If you look at all the Disney films, they display a balance of good versus evil. So if Main Street, USA is our hero and it's the good part of town, then that makes New Orleans Square and the Haunted Mansion the bad part of town. Or not the bad part of town, but the scary part of town, the evil part of town. And just like Walt would perfectly balance this in his movies, so he would also balance his theme park. So the Haunted Mansion sits placed right here on the edge of the park to do something incredibly important, to add a proper balance to Disneyland. A proper balance of good versus evil, a part of Main Street that is palpable, that you can feel, that is reminiscent of your hometown or what you think your old hometown would be like. But then also, it has to have that scary, spooky part of town, that part of town that has myths and legends about it. The Haunted Mansion balanced out the Disneyland story. And for that, I will forever be grateful that they were bold enough, smart enough not to put in a rickety, old, rundown building that would make Disneyland look kind of trashy, but a pristine mansion, Victorian mansion on the edge of town that would only gather curiosity about what is its story, what's happening in there, and think about how that story must have compounded when the building was sitting here, but the attraction wasn't, for 6 long years. One of the things that I enjoy the most about both the Haunted Mansion and New Orleans Square is not only is it just absolutely drop dead beautiful and gorgeous, and it's so rich in its storytelling and its village, but all of this on the outskirts of town, to me as a story, it justifies Main Street, USA and makes it feel more real because there's something out there. There's a town that exists out on the edge. And with there being something more out there, it just makes it all feel even more real. If Main Street was just the only city part of the park and everything else was just a bunch of wild rides based on cartoons and movies, Disneyland would feel more like a park. But it's not a park. It's a theme park. And this adds all of the theme to that park. And it does it masterfully. So when you think about the storytelling ecosystem of Disneyland, all of these little pieces are stitched together in geographic location, architecture, style. It plays such an important part of how all of these pieces come together in perfect harmony to put the theme in the theme park of Disneyland. And as I like to think about it, they also make Disneyland feel like a real little city, which is my favorite part of this place. And I love all the parts of Disneyland that help us let go of reality. Like, yeah, I know there's a big pink castle at the end of the street, but there's also a city hall, a train station, and so many other parts of it that would offer the idea that there's an infrastructure here, that there's a reality here, that this town happens to be a real little town. And like any other town, it has its offskirts. It has its parts of town that have mystery and intrigue. It also has mailboxes. Mailboxes makes it feel incredibly real. Because it has so many pieces that are recognizable to our reality, it therefore makes it feel more real. So it only makes sense that there's also a bad part of town. So when we find ourselves in Main Street, USA, it is the goody-goody two-shoes nostalgic version that we remember of America. And when we find ourselves in New Orleans Square, we found ourselves in another part of Disneyland that feels very real to us, but it's the more eclectic, artsy part. It's also the part that has the most haunted or scary part, which feels that way because it's so far away from all of this. The two are tethered together, creating a reality for the other. And that I absolutely love, and maybe you haven't considered before. Main Street feels more real, and New Orleans feels more real because the two of them coexist together. And the space apart just makes one feel like downtown and the other one feel like the outskirts. And where our story takes place today, it was the outermost edge of Disneyland. So if you've ever asked yourself why this location for the Haunted Mansion, you have to keep in mind that when the Haunted Mansion showed up, this was the outermost edge of Disneyland. This was it. This was the farthest point you could wander to. So Disney placing the Haunted Mansion on the outskirts of town, it just was good storytelling and perfect placement because there was nothing else here. Other than local myths, folklore, the history of the Haunted Mansion coming to Disneyland is just as rich as the Haunted Mansion's history itself. Therefore, perfect placement and storytelling that this was that spooky house on the edge of town. You know, the one that everybody talks about, that there's rumors about, that's way off in no man's land. Well, this was that no man's land. So believe it or not, there is a moment in Disney's history where this is the outer edge. These are the outer banks. This is the outer edge of town where folks may be a little bit different than the people that you know downtown. Things move at a different pace, and there's room for rumors about what happens in the part that's away from where you live. Main Street, USA is the business district where the city is moving and it comes to life. New Orleans Square is the arts district, that eclectic neighborhood out on the edge of town where the folks that live out there are a little bit different than the townspeople that live in its city's core. And you know how these things work. Typically, the people that live in the city don't like the people that live on the edge of town, and the people that live on the edge of town don't like people that live in the city. It's not unusual for one group to have a misconception about the other group. So yes, one of the things that I told you that I would explain to you today is why you should stop complaining and crying about the Haunted Mansion closing. Let's do the math on the Haunted Mansion and why we are an entitled generation of Haunted Mansion fans. And yes, I'm putting me in the mix with the we. The Haunted Mansion would open August 9th, 1969. But that's not where this story starts. It was 8 years earlier in 1961 that they started handing out handbills promoting the Haunted Mansion. That's spanning 8 years from getting announcement to actually seeing the attraction come into fruition. In 1961, they were claiming that the attraction would be open by 1963, 2 years later. Well, much like the treehouse, that target came and went. In 1965, Disney fans would see a preview of the Haunted Mansion on World of Color with Walt Disney. But they still wouldn't get the Haunted Mansion for years to come. And friends, making it even more bizarre, the building was placed here in 1963. So think about it, from 1963 to 69 when it opens, you could come here, you could see the building, but you could not ride the Haunted Mansion. It would be a while in between people's visits to the Haunted Mansion, which would then give the room for rumors to become reality to some folks. Like, think about it. Maybe an older kid at school would swear to you, oh no man, it was open the last time I was there. And so that would even make you even more confused. Well, why is it closed when I came back? And people started to create all kinds of different rumors based on why it had opened and already closed. Back then, there were no blogs, there were no YouTube videos, there was Disney's media, there was the LA Times, a little bit of local publications. There were very, very, very few sources of information that you could get about what was happening at the park. You couldn't just watch a live stream. Nobody knew what that was. The first ever live stream was when they opened the park. That's a whole other story. The opening day, that is maybe the first real ambitious live stream. There was no way to know what was happening with this folklore, with this building on the edge of town, the town of Disneyland. So we all know what people do when they don't know the truth, when they can't figure something out. They make up the rest. They make up the parts they don't know. And with there being no media outlets to understand what's going on with the mansion, people would just make up the rest. So it'd be very possible that one of your friends would swear to you at one point the mansion had been open. People didn't usually come once a week, once a month, or even once a year like many of us are privileged to do. People came every now and again, at most maybe once or twice a year. And in between those trips, they would hear rumors that the mansion had indeed opened up, but it closed back down. One of the big rumors being that it had closed because it was too scary. And my favorite rumor, the mansion had opened, but had to close because someone died on the Haunted Mansion. But I do love the idea that people would swear to each other, oh no, it had been open in between the last 3 years since you've been here. It opened, but it had to close because it was too scary, or it had to close because somebody died on it. There were also rumors where when they were building it, a construction worker working in the concrete had died, and that's why it sat here for 6 years. For 6 years, it wasn't opening because of all these different rumors, but really, it was because of the World's Fair eating up so much of Walt Disney Imagineering's time, and also the passing of Walt Disney. This was the project that he was in the middle of when he would unfortunately pass away. Is there a better attraction that could have sat with just the facade and no show for 6 years? It must have made it feel even creepier, even scarier, and even more rewarding when people finally got to go inside and take a ride. So yes, 1 month out of the year, it's closed. And yes, 4.5 months out of the year, it's a different theme. Because we're so lucky at Disneyland that we get a new theme for Halloween and the holidays, and people complain that it lasts too long. But they get none of that at the Magic Kingdom and Walt Disney World and its clone. Complain to the kid who was 10 years old when he got excited about the Haunted Mansion. And then when they were 12 years old, they finally saw the building erected. And then they had to wait until they were 18 years old to finally go beyond the gates and ride the attraction. In the time that they were waiting for this one attraction to open, we've gotten Avengers Campus, Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, Pixar Pier has been rethemed, and so many other things. Parades, fireworks shows. I mean, call me crazy, but complaining that it's closed for a couple of weeks here and there, or I don't like the theme that's there for 4.5 months, feels a little crazy when you think about people before us that had to wait between 9 and 6 years to finally go inside the gates and ride. possibly the best Disneyland attraction of all time. And I'm not trying to downplay how bad it must be or how much it must suck when you come here on your once in a year vacation or once in a couple of years and it aligns with maybe it not being your favorite version of the Haunted Mansion, or maybe that's the 2 weeks that it's down for its transformation. I get that, I understand that. I can be sensitive to that, but you don't have to wait 6 more years for that to happen. Just schedule around that 1 month out of the year or 4 months out of the year if you don't like the holiday overlay. I don't know. I just hear a lot of people complaining about it, and I just wanted to paint a picture with this series that I'm doing where I'm showing you all the different history, fun facts, folklore, stories that all exist inside of this special building. And I thought while it was closed for its transformation, I wouldn't complain about it, but I would celebrate it. Celebrate it because we don't have to wait as long as others have to get back inside of there. And soon, very soon, tomorrow we'll be in there when Jack Skellington has come to wreck the halls. So friends, if you want to learn more about the Haunted Mansion and all of its history, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you watch this playlist right here because I'm going deep. I'm going crazy deep, telling you all the different little pieces and parts that make this thing so special. And it'll be back open real soon. Thank you so much for showing up. Thank you for subscribing, and thank you for watching this playlist. I cannot wait until we do it all over again. Goodbye, and stop your complaining. Or you know what? Complain if you want to. It's your life. Live it however you want. For me though, I'm going to go team not complain, team grateful that we have this in our life, and soon it's going to be special for the holidays, which are my kind of days.